Now that we have our Docker file, how can we build an image using the Nginx image? When we are working with Docker images, it is basically layer upon layer. What I mean by that is, let's say we have a base image here, we make a copy of that image, we add a few more items here. Sometimes we will do that multiple times, and final product that we have here will be the final image that we want. Like for this example, we are taking the default Nginx image right here. We are copying few files here, and after we modify these files in the Nginx image, we want to create a new image that will have the HTML file for our web project. So always remember, when you are working with Docker, you will take the default image that is provided, you will modify few things there, add few files or whatever modification you want, and ultimately you will have a new image that you will use to run a Docker container. Like if it was a .NET project, you might take the base image of .NET, add all your project files, do a build, restore all the NuGet packages, and then deploy the application to the container. So that way all of those steps you will have to add them as layers in your Docker file. Right now we are keeping things simple. We are taking the original copy of the Nginx image, pasting our HTML files to a certain location, and after that we will generate a new image with that HTML file. So now the main question is, how will we generate that image? And for that we will go back here. Let me copy the route and open the PowerShell window. Let me do a clear screen here, and perfect. Now I will have to change the directory to the folder where I have the Docker file, and let me close that Docker file. Perfect. Now we are in the directory where we have the Docker file. Inside there we will have a new command, that is docker build. Using docker build, we will be building a new image. When we build a new image here, we can give that a tag which will be by -t. Let me call that sample web app. Along with that, we need to provide route or path of a Docker file. If we examine the path here, Docker file is inside that path, so we can directly write a dot here, and that will be sufficient. But with that, if we press enter, you will notice the first error message, repository name must be all lowercase. So with that, we need to fix that. It will be sample web app. What we have written here is the repository name. But if you want to be explicit, you can even define a tag which is separated by a double quote. So right here I have written double quote 1.0.0. That is the tag name given to the repository name of sample web app. Now if you do not provide any tag name, then by default it will create that repository with the tag of latest. But if you want to be explicit and give a version, then this is the best place to do that for your repository or Docker image. After that, we have to define the location for our Docker file, that is in the same path here, so make sure you do not forget a dot there. Now even with lowercase here, if I run the command, you will see one more error message. You can see it was doing something and then it failed right here. Reason is simple. If you make a mistake in the Docker file, things will not work. And spelling mistakes are pretty common. You can see it will be Nginx. I have a mistake there. I intentionally had a spelling mistake there, but once you correct that, things will start working again. All you had to do is read the error message here. It said from Nginx, failed to solve Nginx pull access denied. That means that the repository did not exist for some reason. So one probable reason is there is a spelling mistake in what we have written. When you are working with Docker files, spelling mistakes are pretty common because you do not have IntelliSense like you are working with HTML or .NET using Visual Studio. So always be careful about what you type, and with that, let me re-enter the command again and see what happens. And perfect! There were 7 out of 7 steps and everything completed successfully. How do we validate that? If Docker build is successful, there will be new image. So if we say Docker images here, perfect. We have the sample web app with the tag, and that looks good. Now what exactly is this image? That image is basically the same image as Nginx here, but on top of that it would have copied all the files from sample web app to the destination folder that we wrote in the Docker file. Now if I go back here, we have a sample image here. The main question is how can we build a container using the image that we have right here and see our web page executing in a container. Let me show that in the next video.